Good day to everyone tuning in for another breakdown of your favorite drama, Kwababa. Today's episode, which aired on the 27th of August 2026, was one of those installments that reminds you exactly why this show has become appointment viewing across the country. Between a boardroom power struggle, a decades-old paternity secret finally cracking open, and a ritual gone spectacularly wrong, the Mackay's family gave us more tension in 40 minutes than some shows manage in an entire season. Grab your tea, get comfortable, and let's go through everything that happened, beat by beat, before we get into what it might mean for the episodes still to come. At the center of it all is one simple but explosive question: will Zwelakhe come back to the family company, or has Kwababa finally pushed him past the point of no return? By the end of the episode, we have our answer, and it is not the one Kwababa was hoping for. The episode opens with the household still reeling from the aftermath of the previous week's revelations. Musa, ever the peacemaker of the family, is shown trying to smooth things over between the two warring sides of the household. She is the kind of character who genuinely can stand to see the people she loves at each other's throats, and this episode leans into that side of her heavily. We see her approach her mother first, gently probing to find out whether there is any truth to the rumors swirling about Zwelakhe's parentage, and whether the family business is really worth tearing the household apart over. Her mother, however, is characteristically evasive. She tells Musa, in no uncertain terms, that some matters are better left buried, and that digging into old wounds will only bring more pain than answers. It's a classic soapy deflection, but it works dramatically because we, the audience, already suspect there is far more going on beneath the surface than anyone in the family is willing to admit. Musa doesn't let it go easily. She reminds her mother that Zwelakhe has spent his whole life believing he belongs to this family, working hard to prove himself worthy of the Mackay's name, and that keeping secrets from him now, after everything, feels like a betrayal. It's one of the more emotionally grounded moments early in the episode, and it sets the tone for everything that follows. This is not just a story about money and power, it's a story about identity and belonging. From here, the episode shifts to a quieter, more intimate scene between Musa and Zwelakhe. This is arguably one of the strongest scenes of the whole episode. Musa finds him alone, clearly still processing everything that has been thrown at him over the past few days, and she doesn't tiptoe around the subject. She tells him plainly that she cares about him, that she has always seen him as a brother regardless of what any DNA test might reveal, and that whatever Kwababa is trying to do to strip him of his name and his place in the family will not change how she and the rest of the household truly feel about him. Zwelakhe, for his part, is guarded. He tells her that he appreciates the gesture, but that words only go so far when actions keep proving otherwise. He brings up the fact that despite everyone's private reassurances, nobody has been willing to stand up publicly and defend him when it matters most. It's a fair point, and it's one that lands hard on Musa, who visibly struggles to respond. There's a nice piece of writing here, because instead of Musa immediately promising to fix everything, she is shown sitting with the discomfort of not having a good answer. It gives the scene a sense of honesty that a lot of these family dramas skip over in favor of quick resolutions. Zwelakhe eventually opens up a little more, revealing that part of what hurts so much is that he had genuinely started to believe he belonged. He talks about how seriously he had taken on the responsibility that came with being seen as the heir apparent, how he had tried to become a better man because of it, and how all of that now feels like it was built on sand. It's a vulnerable moment for a character who is usually written as fairly stoic, and it works well to humanize him right before the chaos of the second half of the episode kicks in. The next major beat of the episode sees Kwababa attempting to assert his authority once again, this time by trying to call a family meeting inside Mokozi's home. Mokozi, unsurprisingly, is having none of it. She shuts him down immediately, reminding him in no uncertain terms that he does not have the standing to summon anyone into her household for a meeting about family matters, especially not one designed to serve his own agenda. If anyone is going to call a family meeting, she tells him, it will happen on her terms, in her own home, and not because Kwab has decided to play the role of family patriarch. This exchange is delivered with a lot of the show's trademark dry humor mixed into the tension, and it's genuinely satisfying to watch Mokozi refuse to be steamrolled. Kwab, visibly frustrated but unwilling to back down completely, shifts tactics. Rather than pushing further with Mokozi, he pivots and decides to take his campaign directly to the workplace instead, framing it as a matter that concerns the company rather than the family. It's a shrewd, if underhanded, move, and it sets up the episode's central confrontation. One of the most dramatically loaded sequences in the episode revolves around a ritual involving a traditional beer calabash, performed as part of an attempt to symbolically strip Zwelakhe of his standing within the Mackay's lineage. The elders gather, tension thick in the air, as Kwab pushes forward with the idea that Zwelakhe should be removed from the family name because, in his view, Zwelakhe is not a blood Mackay's and has no right to the inheritance or standing that comes with the surname. What follows, though, does not go the way Kwab intended. As the ritual proceeds, the calabash used in the ceremony is dropped and shatters, spilling its contents across the floor in a moment that instantly reads as symbolic to everyone present. In the world of Kwababa, and in the broader cultural context the show draws from, this kind of moment is never treated as a simple accident. The elders in the room immediately interpret the broken vessel as a sign from the ancestors, a message that the attempt to sever Zwelakhe from the family is being rejected by forces greater than Kwab's personal grievances. The symbolism here is rich, and the show leans into it without over-explaining itself, trusting the audience to understand the cultural weight of what has just happened. One of the elders speaks up, delivering what is essentially the emotional and spiritual thesis of the episode, that blood alone does not determine who belongs to a family, and that if the ancestors themselves are refusing to endorse Kwab's plan, then perhaps it is Kwab, and not Zwelakhe, who is out of step with what the family truly stands for. Kwab, humiliated in front of the very elders he hoped would back him, is left visibly rattled. He tries to argue his way out of the moment, insisting that the broken calabash means nothing and that he will continue pursuing his plan regardless of how it is interpreted, but the damage to his credibility is done. Even Musa, who has tried throughout the episode to stay diplomatically neutral, is shown reacting with visible discomfort at her brother's refusal to accept what just happened in front of everyone. With the ritual having failed to go his way, Kwab regroups and turns his attention back to the company, calling what he frames as a routine meeting with the staff. In reality, it becomes clear almost immediately that this is not a normal business update. Kwab stands in front of the employees and announces a restructuring of management, positioning himself and, awkwardly, still referencing Zwelakhe, as the new leadership of the company, despite everything that has just unfolded regarding Zwelakhe's place in the family. It's a strange and telling choice on Kwab's part. Even as he tries to strip Zwelakhe of the family name, he clearly still wants to use Zwelakhe's presence and reputation to legitimize his own power grab within the business. This contradiction does not go unnoticed. Zwelakhe, present in the room, immediately calls it out, questioning aloud why Kwab would go to such lengths to erase his surname in one breath and then try to install him as co-leadership in the next. He accuses Kwab of only caring about winning, not about any actual principle regarding family or bloodlines, and the accusation clearly stings, because Kwab struggles to produce a coherent response in front of the watching staff. This is the moment the episode has been building toward. Zwelakhe, standing in the very boardroom that Kwab has been trying to use as a stage for his ambitions, delivers his refusal in front of everyone. He tells the room, plainly and without hesitation, that he will not be returning to a leadership role in a company where his place in the family that owns it is treated as negotiable depending on what is convenient for Kwab at any given moment. He says that a business built on that kind of instability is not one he wants his name, whichever name that ends up being, attached to. The reaction in the room is immediate. Some of the staff exchange uneasy glances, clearly sensing that this is a much bigger moment than a simple management announcement. Kwab attempts to salvage the situation, telling Zwelakhe that he is being emotional and that business decisions should not be made in the heat of a family dispute. Zwelakhe's response is calm but firm. He tells Kwab that his decision has nothing to do with emotion and everything to do with self-respect, and that he refuses to keep proving his worth to people who have already decided, behind closed doors, that he doesn't belong. Running parallel to the company drama is the slow unraveling of Mokosi's long-buried secret regarding Zwelakhe's paternity. Throughout the episode, we get glimpses of Mokosi's growing anxiety as pressure mounts on multiple fronts for her to finally reveal who Zwelakhe's biological father really is. Musa, still trying to get to the bottom of things, presses her mother again, this time more directly, asking her to simply confirm or deny the rumors that have been circulating. Mokosi's response is telling. Rather than answering directly, she tells her children that they should stop trying to dig into her past and instead draw their own conclusions, effectively neither confirming nor denying anything, but also not shutting the conversation down completely the way she did earlier in the episode. It's a subtle shift, and sharp-eyed viewers will notice that this is the first time all episode that Mokosi has left even a small opening for the truth to eventually come out. Later in the episode, in a moment played almost entirely through implication and reaction shots rather than direct dialogue, it becomes strongly suggested that Mokosi's relationship history around the time of Zwelakhe's conception was more complicated, and possibly more scandalous, than anyone in the family has previously acknowledged. Without spelling it out explicitly, the episode plants enough seeds to make it clear that whoever Zwelakhe's biological father turns out to be, the reveal is going to send shockwaves through the entire family, and possibly implicate someone much closer to home than anyone currently suspects. Sandwiched between the boardroom confrontation and the fallout from the ritual, the episode gives us a quieter scene set at the Umsamo, the sacred space within the homestead associated with communication with the ancestors. Here, Kwab, alone and clearly shaken by how badly his plans have gone, tries to make a private appeal, asking the ancestors to make clear whether Zwelakhe truly belongs to the Mackay's lineage or not. This scene works well because it shows a different side of Kwab than the scheming, confrontational figure we see in the rest of the episode. Here, stripped of an audience, he seems genuinely uncertain, almost desperate for some kind of definitive answer that would justify everything he has been doing. It's a small but effective piece of characterization, suggesting that at least part of Kwab's aggressive campaign against Zwelakhe may be rooted in his own insecurity about his position within the family, rather than pure malice. Of course, the ancestors, in the show's usual fashion, offer no clean or comforting answer, leaving Kwab exactly where he started, convinced of his own righteousness, but with mounting evidence all around him suggesting that everyone else sees the situation very differently. Following his refusal in the boardroom, the episode moves quickly to show the ripple effects of Zwelakhe's decision. Word spreads through the household almost instantly, and the reactions are mixed. Musa is shown to be quietly proud of Zwelakhe for standing his ground, even as she worries about what his departure from the company means for the family's future stability. Mokosi, when she hears the news, appears far more rattled than one might expect from someone who has spent the whole episode trying to stay above the fray, hinting once again that her connection to Zwelakhe's situation runs deeper than she has let on. Kwab, for his part, refuses to see the moment as a defeat. In a conversation with one of the other family members, he insists that Zwelakhe's refusal to return only proves his point, that Zwelakhe was never truly committed to the family or the business in the first place, and that his walking away is proof he doesn't belong. It's a self-serving interpretation, and the episode is careful not to let it go unchallenged. The family member he is speaking to pushes back, pointing out that Zwelakhe's decision looks a lot less like abandonment and a lot more like a man refusing to keep begging for a seat at a table where he's already been told he isn't wanted. One of the more emotionally resonant scenes toward the end of the episode is a brief, understated conversation between Musa and Zwelakhe as he prepares to leave. There's no grand declaration here, no dramatic music swell, just two people who have grown close over the course of the show acknowledging that things are about to change. Musa tells him that regardless of what happens with the company or the surname dispute, he will always have a place with her personally, even if the rest of the family can't get their act together. Zwelakhe, softer here than he has been for most of the episode, thanks her, but is honest about the fact that he needs some distance to figure out who he is outside of the identity the Mackay's family gave him. It's a mature, quietly sad moment that avoids melodrama in favor of something more grounded, and it works as a strong emotional beat to close out his arc for this episode. The episode closes with the household in a state of uneasy limbo. Kwab has technically won control of the company in the immediate sense, but has lost significant credibility with both the elders and the staff. Zwelakhe has walked away from the business entirely, at least for now, taking with him the possibility of a swift resolution to the paternity question, since he is no longer around daily to be confronted about it. Mbokozi remains the keeper of a secret that is clearly growing too heavy to carry much longer, and Musa is left holding together the emotional pieces of a family that seems more fractured than ever. The final shot lingers on Mbokozi, alone, staring off in the direction Zwelakhe departed, her expression giving away just enough to tell us that this story is far from over. Stepping back from the plot recap for a moment, what makes this particular episode of Kwababa work so well is how it manages to juggle three separate but interconnected conflicts: the company power struggle, the surname and inheritance dispute, and the slow reveal of Zwelakhe's true parentage, without letting any one of them feel neglected. Each storyline informs the others. Kwab's push to strip Zwelakhe of the family name is inseparable from his desire to control the company, and both of those threads are shadowed constantly by the unanswered question of who Zwelakhe's biological father actually is. The ritual sequence deserves particular praise for how it uses cultural symbolism to advance the plot rather than simply decorating it. The broken calabash isn't just a dramatic prop moment, it functions as a genuine turning point that shifts the moral weight of the episode away from Kwab and towards Zwelakhe, giving the audience a clear signal about where our sympathies are meant to lie without the show having to spell it out through dialogue alone. Performance-wise, this episode gives strong material to everyone involved, but it is really Zwelakhe's episode. His arc, from wounded and guarded in his early scene with Musa, to composed and resolute in the boardroom, to quietly vulnerable in his farewell scene, gives the character a real sense of growth within a single episode, which is no small feat for a long-running drama that often has to stretch character development across weeks or months. Kwab, meanwhile, is written with just enough shading to avoid becoming a flat villain. His moment alone at the Umsamo suggests genuine insecurity underneath his aggression, even if his public actions remain difficult to root for. It will be interesting to see whether the show continues to humanize him in coming episodes or whether this brief moment of vulnerability was simply there to make his eventual comeuppance land harder. With Zwelakhe now walking away from the company, several major questions are left hanging over the household heading into the next episode. Will Kwab's leadership of the company hold up without the credibility that came from having Zwelakhe publicly associated with it? Will Mbokozi finally be forced to reveal the truth about Zwelakhe's biological father, especially now that the pressure from multiple sides is mounting? And perhaps most importantly, will Zwelakhe's absence from the family business create an opening for someone else, whether Musa or another family member entirely, to step in and reshape the power dynamics of the household while he's away figuring out his next move? Given how the show has structured this episode, with the calabash ritual so clearly marking Kwab as being out of step with both the family and the ancestors, it feels unlikely that the show intends for his current position of power to remain unchallenged for long. Whether that challenge comes from Zwelakhe returning on his own terms, from Mbokozi's secret finally forcing a reckoning, or from an entirely new complication we haven't seen coming yet, the pieces are all in place for a significant shake-up in the episodes ahead. It's worth spending a little extra time on Mbokozi, because her performance in this episode is doing some of the heaviest lifting of the entire hour, even though she has comparatively little screen time compared to Kwab and Zwelakhe. Every scene she appears in, she is essentially playing defense, fending off questions from Musa, refusing to be bullied by Kwab inside her own home, and quietly absorbing the shock of watching Zwelakhe walk away from the company without ever fully explaining why she seems so personally affected by it. What the episode does cleverly is let Mokosi's silences speak louder than her words. Every time she deflects a direct question about Zwelakhe's father, the camera lingers just a bit too long on her face, long enough for the audience to register that there is far more going on internally than she is letting anyone see. This restraint pays off dramatically, because it means that whenever the eventual reveal does come, it won't feel like it arrived out of nowhere. The show has been carefully planting the emotional groundwork episode by episode, and this installment adds several more bricks to that foundation. There's also something quietly tragic about Mokosi's position